Hi, welcome to the Justin Zone. Some really creepy things have been happening. I mean, we are in Camp Crystal Lake after all. Now, it's me, Paper Bag Jason, and Paper Bag Nick, and, well, Paper Bag Rachel. We're all here. I'm telling you, just some really creepy things have been happening. I mean, I got this tent set up here. Hopefully, I can just hide in here, but it's like, well, I don't know, it's like ever since we got here, I've been seeing things and hearing things. Well, welcome to the Justin Zone's Summer Special. Sorry, I have to be very quiet. I don't know what's out there.
Justin Zone!
Well, hi, welcome back to the Justin Zone.
If you're feeling down, you don't have to feel alone. Just get on the internet, go to the Justin Zone. He's the best friend that you have ever known. Yes, boys and girls, it's time for the Justin Zone. Throw your brain out the window.
What the hell? Oh my God, who are you?
You're in the Justin Zone. Throw your brain out the window.
Hey.
Get what you know. Don't adjust the screen. You're in the Justin Zone. You're in the Justin Zone. You're in
So what would the Justin Zone be without one last kick up and let's do this thing?
We're in the Justin Zone.
Hi, welcome to the Justin Zone. Hold on.
Justin Zone!
This is the Justin Zone Summer Special, and I thought, let's go back to a classic, a very classic. Now, I did happen to bring a movie with me, but this is not just any movie we're talking about. We're talking about Friday the 13th. This is truly the movie of all movies. What's interesting about this is the movie here that defines the slasher genre to a T. A lot of people consider this the very first slasher, even though technically Halloween had been released around the same time, or at least close to that. But this movie right here, no matter how you see it, is truly a slasher flick. I mean, we're going to talk about the first four movies. How it goes is that, the story starts out with these, we see this camp, we see these people out in this camp, and there's somebody watching. You don't really get a good glimpse of who it is, but you're seeing it from their view. Like, that's the interesting thing about this movie. You'll see a lot of, like, a person's view, but you won't know who that person is. But later on, this couple goes out, and, well, you know what they're thinking. You don't think about that stuff when you're, in a horror movie. Hey, let's get it on, but you're gonna die. But they do this, and then suddenly they're caught, but they don't know who this person is. They're just apologizing, and then suddenly, they're both dead. And, so after that, goes to a couple years later. This guy wants to open up the camp again. Well, he gets together all these people to help him do that. Well, the reputation of this camp it's Camp Crystal Lake, but it's also referred to as Camp Love. There's this old man, you're all doomed, it's got a death curse, and he is scaring you. Anyway, I'm feeling rude here. Let's get out our guest for today. She's been very shy about coming on the show, but everybody, I want to introduce you, Paper Bag Rachel. Say hello, Paper Bag. Hi. How are you today? Good. I'm a little nervous about being out here. Why? I mean, we're fine. There's no way that the legend is true about Camp Crystal Lake. Says you. You're lucky. You're just a person. I'm a paper bag. Yeah, but I'm more vulnerable at dying. Yeah, well, they could do worse than me. They could, light me on fire. Or put food in my bag. Creepy. You guys just, I try to do what I can for you. I can't protect you. I mean, I don't know why Paper Bag Nick and Paper Bag Jason ran off. I mean, hopefully they get back. I mean, don't you go running off either. Well, normally the girl gets it first anyway. There's necessarily true. Usually the blonde gets it first. And you're a redhead, so you're lucky. True. Anyway, let's go back to the rest of the story. But, that's basically the basic outline. Kids start getting whacked off. Now, I want to add an own personal line. Kevin Bacon's in this movie. This is not, I don't know if this would be prior to Footloose, but this is one of his first of many films. And it's like, I always like pointing out the fact that a lot of actors do have some of their stardom in a horror movie. And I'll get to more of them as we go on through the show, or at least, the season. Anyway, so the first one, it kind of wraps up. It's hard to not give away, but of course there's always one survivor. And we do hear about Jason Voorhees in this one. He is referred to as the boy that drowned. Yeah, he drowned and died. Well, maybe. Yeah, and at the end, the girl who claims she saw Jason just like, he's still there. And then it just goes to black. It goes to black. That's very creepy. So, but now with that taking place, now let's talk about, Sean Cunningham, he is the man who created this. He would actually previously had worked on Last House on the Left, which was a Wes Craven film before Nightmare on Elm Street. He worked on this, and he wanted to do his own movie. So they got together, and they were starting to come about summer camp and stuff. And then eventually, the idea was spouted off about Friday the 13th. But it was various things, One Night in Camp Blood, stuff like that. Well, and then eventually it was like, hey, let's call it Friday the 13th. Now, a little history about Friday the 13th. It obviously happens every year. Many times, I can't really seem to remember. But it has been a known fact. More, they say, I don't know if this is true or not, more crime, more violence happens in this particular day. And I don't know if there's always a full moon on Friday the 13th. But it's not a coincidence. Even in the movie, they mentioned the crime and the violence goes up every year Friday the 13th. So anyway, yes, and also hold on, I'm trying to. Where's his name? Well, I hope you're familiar with the work of. Another actor, well, he's not an actor per se, but he's done many things. Hold on, I think I have his name here somewhere. Tom Savini. Tom Savini actually does the stunts for this movie, and that's the coolest thing. These are, the effects that were done in this movie. So anyway, let's jump off. I've told you a little about the first one. Now let's jump into the second one. So, ironically, the survivor of the first one is shown in this movie. Well, she doesn't last very long. Now, I don't know if there was a conflict issue or something. Now, remember, Sean Cunningham had nothing to do with the sequel. And Paramount apparently wanted a sequel. First, they didn't have faith in the film, but then they suddenly did. So the title comes up. Now, in the first title, again, The Glass Shatter. The second title comes up and goes boom! And then it goes part 2. So with part 2, now there's a camp on the other side of the lake. Camp Blood has been pretty much closed down, keeps everything. But now, it seems that with all this other camp center, there's more going on. Now, we don't... Now, they have a campfire, and they're talking about... the night that what happened in the first movie. Well, they say Jason Voorhees is now still alive. He's some kind of wild man. Why are you trying to scare me? We are in Camp Crystal Lake. Don't worry about it. We're fine. We're all fine. As long as we stick together. I'm going to get those two. If Jason doesn't get them, I'm going to get them. Anyway, but yes. For most purposes, this takes place. So there's not too many familiar actors. Well, there is one. He is in Once Bitten, and he's in One of the Guys. He's a redhead curly guy. I can't remember his name for the life of me. He's in this. So we go from this part into, it goes to the same stuff, but then, we start seeing the eerie figure again, but we think, okay, who is it this time? Well, obviously, yes, Jason Voorhees is the killer in this one. Not to give much away, but, I mean, if you've seen the movies, yes, he's in the killer. Now, the first killer, I don't want to give too much away on who he is, because if you've never seen it, you understand most of the movies. But yes, from this on, he's wearing a bag over his head. And that's the interesting thing, too. He's wearing a bag over his head the whole time. So we never really get to see what he looks like. And he does this throughout the first, second, or at least the first couple, all the films he does wear a mask, obviously. You know what kind of mask. Well, now with the second one, now there is a scene. Now the actor, one of the guys, I think his name's Paul, yes. He apparently left the film early. So they did shoot a scene at the end where they think they got rid of Jason and stuff like that, and then Jason bursts from the room, got a girl. We show the ending where she's being dragged off. Now supposedly he left the film early. I don't know, like, reason-wise, but maybe his contract with us, maybe he just wasn't happy with the ending of the film, but it's weird. It's like, whatever happened to everybody else? Did everybody else just decide to leave? I mean, obviously we know who those were killed and stuff like that, but, you're never really, it's always weird. It's like, whatever happened to some of the people that do survive? I mean, there are apparently a bunch more survivors, and Jason didn't get all of them, obviously. So, okay. Now we're on to part 3. Now, what's interesting about part 3 is it's in 3D. Oh, I love 3D. Are we going to have glasses for 3D? Well, it's not the 3D you're thinking of. Yes, nowadays 3D is a little more sophisticated, but interesting enough, the 3D in this one, it's kind of funny to watch, because I've actually watched it in the 3D, and there are scenes that were actually deliberately made for the 3D. There are some scenes that will just kind of pop out at you, like the stuff will be stuck out farther. Like, they did this deliberately, and it was a treat to watch it in 3D. Thank you, Andrew, for enjoying that with me when we were watching that in 3D. Part 3, it was dubbed Friday the 13th Part 3D. Now, they did do this with other movies, obviously, with the 3 in the title. They did, well, Jaws 3D, Amityville Horror 3D. I think those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head. Anyway, so part 3, we're told this takes place right after part 2. Like, we're talking there, we see on the news this happened, this couple is owning their little shop and stuff like that, and then boom, 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 they get whacked. Well, they're driving down, and now we meet these group of kids. Obviously they're going down for sex, drugs, the whole combination that makes Friday the 13th Friday the 13th. You think about sex, you're gonna die. You think about drugs, you're gonna die. You think about, well, drinking or doing anything else, you're gonna die. It's Friday the 13th. These are rules that are taboo. And that was the interesting thing about these movies. These movies were considered the drug and sex and drinking movies. This was to literally scare you, like, oh God, I'm gonna have sex, I'm gonna die. Well, we all have to go sometime. That's a very negative attitude. Well, I can't help it. Everybody's got to go sometime. But you know something? I think it's funny to know that, yeah, you're right. All these movies were the anti-drug movies and stuff like that. But, a lot of days they are more anti-smoking and stuff. Good point. Anyway, back on the subject. But yes, interestingly enough, like with part 3, you find this is where the hockey mask finally comes in. Now, he gets the hockey mask. You will see how he gets the hockey mask. I want to spoil too much in movies, because I want my viewers to go out and actually watch these movies. These are great movies, no matter how corny they are. They symbolize the greatness of what horror was, and nowadays it's all about true stories and ghosts and stuff like that. It's like, I want to hear about a true story. I want to go out there and I want to hear about something fictional. Thank you. Anyway, so with and then the girl in this claims that she saw Jason prior to this movie. Like, apparently it could have been during the events of 2 or something, but she was chased after him, and, you know, so, okay, now we dive into Part 4. Part 4 was dubbed the final chapter. Now, ironically, that was never considered. It was not the final chapter. Why it was given that title, I think Paramount eventually was thinking of shutting down the series. So, but the interesting thing is you have 2 actors in this one that you will familiarize yourself with. Corey Feldman, at a very young age, of course, like part of his, like, I guess, you know, all the other films he did in the 80s or late 80s, 70s, either way, this was part of his first role. But interesting enough, he plays a kid who's fascinated by horror itself. Like, he makes masks, he makes this and stuff. And then there's the other guy that's in it. We meet him along the way with a group of teenagers. The guy that's in this one, well, you're familiar with him in Back to the Future when he plays the dad. Yes, he also was in Charlie's Angels. He played the creepy thin man, and then he was in what was it, Walter? You know, the guy with the mice. So Part 4 being the final chapter and everything, you wondered what was going to happen at the end. Like, you know, now Jason obviously from now is the killer. But, you know, it's like he didn't lose his mask. He escapes from the morgue. He goes out back on a rampage. Stuff like that. Interestingly enough, with, I don't know, like, it's just interesting that you look back at some people, like with Corey Feldman, this was like, you look at him now, it's like, where is he now? But this is one movie that it's weird. He's remembered in having a role in this movie, but I don't think this is something that was based off his career. It was, I think, more people think of him in Goonies and, well, you know, the vampire movie, and I can't even think now. I don't know why. Darn it! For the life of me, I can't remember. It's right on the top of my head. Either way, you know, it's like you don't think of like in the guy who played the dad Back to the Future. Everybody thinks of him as Back to the Future, so it's like it's weird that we overlook their first movies, but we overlook the movies they were in before they got big, and then we forget about the movies. We look at the movies that made them big, and we overlook the movies that they started in. You know, it's like, so anyway, I don't know where the guys are. I mean, but we've got so many, and this is going to be a Friday the 13th marathon. I mean, you know, you love Friday the 13th. Well, I've still got I've got part 5 and 8 up next. What do you think, Rachel? Do you think we should go out and find the guys? Yeah. I don't know. I think I don't know, maybe they're dead. Now, that's not a good attitude to have. I think, I think it's all creepy out here now. It's like, well, I think we should end this and go out and look for the guys. Well, this is not so long. This is to be continued because I need to go out and find the guys. If we don't find them now, God knows what will happen to them. So this has been the Justin Zone. We'll see you next time on part 2 of my summer special with Friday the 13th, part 5 and through 8. See ya. Or, well, to be continued.